to go ahead and get started. I'm sure you guys have things that you want to do with your lunch period after the lunch and learn. So we're going to go ahead and get going here. And actually, we'll probably be done in about 30-35 minutes. So first off, good morning. Thanks for coming to this lunch and learn over the Baldrige Initiative. As you guys know, this is the final lunch and learn over our Baldrige application. And this one concerns the second half of Category 7, which is results. Dr. Strobel had intended on presenting this lunch and learn, but had a conflict and had to be out of town. So I hope you guys don't mind me stepping in and pinch hitting for during this session. I have 4 different things that I'd like to do today. First, I'd like to just kind of give you an overview of what my perspective of Baldrige is from the results angle, because we get it. Angie and I have a little different perspective since we see everybody's collected work. I also want to share with you the specific data that we included in our application that went out and became official last week. I'd like to also convey some information from Dr. Strobel about further steps and what's going to happen in the future, specifically next fall as we get ready for the site visit. And like I said, I'd like to get you out of here in 35 minutes, so we'll get started. I think it's a law that you have to show this as part of the lunch and learn for Baldrige. I know you guys have seen this many times, but it does a good job of kind of showing how everything fits in the Baldrige scheme. You know, Angie and I wrote this part Category 7, and you've got the lunch and learn professional development on everything in that side. But our category is a lot different than the other ones. The first 6 categories, 7 if you include the preface, tell the story of what we do at Tri-County Tech. Talks about our processes and the way that we measure things, but it's all a story. Category 7 is where we take those stories and try to quantify how successful we are in terms of achieving the things that we're trying to achieve. So Baldrige puts a huge emphasis on those results, and I don't know if you know the exact number, but 45% of our overall score is based on the score that we get in results. So how can we show causality between the things that we're talking about in the first 6 sections and our results? So this diagram is great. If you're a logical person, you look at it and say, oh, okay, fine. But I've talked to some people, some coworkers, that still are kind of hazy on how Baldrige fits together. So if you'll indulge me, I have another picture that I think also illustrates the Baldrige journey at Tri-County Tech. So hopefully we're all familiar, the Chinese proverb of 4 blind men investigating an elephant. And they're touching different parts of the elephant, trying to figure out what the elephant is. The guy up front gets the trunk and thinks it's a reed. The guy on the side thinks it's a wall. I won't talk about that anymore. But this is basically an analogy for what Baldrige has been for us this year. The process team are the blind men, right? The process team each got a part of this and went to investigate. And it doesn't mean that they're clueless, that they didn't know what was going on or how it all fit together. It's just that it's really big. It's hard to get your arms around. The elephant itself is us. It's Tri-County Tech. And in the analogy, what they're trying to do, identify what this thing is Baldrige. The process of trying to get our arms around who we are, what we do, and how good we are at it. So just to kind of put a transition in this, if this is what Baldrige is, where does data fit in? So since it's such a big idea, and I think sometimes people get confused what it is that we're doing, I thought I'd take just a minute here and kind of explain how we go from this picture to data. First off, before what Baldrige is, here's what Baldrige isn't, and this is the most important part. It isn't a strategy. It isn't a prescription. It isn't a gimmick. It's not something that we're going to plug in at Tri-County Tech that's going to make us better. Instead, what it is us as a community of workers basically figuring out what it is that we do well and improving upon the processes that are already in place. It's check with this. So the whole idea, the mission of Baldrige is just to measure our level of excellence with the things that we do and measure our excellence in continuous improvement. Whether or not how well are we doing what we say that we do, And then are we striving to make continuous improvement in those regards? Let me stay back here with my notes. So this is accomplished. So if you know what it's about, we're trying to answer those two questions. How excellent are we in our continuous improvement? That's accomplished through a rigorous, comprehensive, exhaustive internal audit, which we've just done. We just completed our year of internal audit. And then next fall, we'll have external auditors come on campus and basically look at what we've done and assess it and give us a score. The strength of the Baldrige program, in my opinion, is that it's grassroots, that we're the ones that are conducting the analysis. It's not coming from the outside in. We're using a whole lot of resources, both internally and externally, to perform this research. And it's pretty much common sense, because the idea is just for us, again, to measure what we're doing and look for ways to improve. So data becomes important, because if we're going to measure how we're doing in terms of if we're going to measure how we're doing in terms of the programs and services that we offer, we need to be able to quantify those offerings. But we can't just use any data, okay? So I have a scenario that I want to propose to you, and then I'm going to have you break up. And just, we're not in tables like we've been in previous lunch and learns. I handed out papers, and if each group would just kind of congregate around a paper. I may have to bring some more around, but when I say break up, your group is basically that group. Here's the scenario. Here's what I want you to think about. Put yourself in the shoes of a Baldrige person, okay? You are Baldrige, if you want to call yourself that. And you've been hired as a consultant to go into a school, okay? Your first meeting with the people at the school, you're trying to figure out what their level of success is. You're trying to get a snapshot for how well they do what they say they do, okay? So you sit down at this table with all the important players at the school, and you ask a question. You say, my purpose here, trying to find out where you guys are at so I can help you improve. Do you have any information, any data that you can give me that will answer that for me, okay? So the superintendent or the CEO, whoever it is at that table that has the most power, gets a big smile on their face because they have the answer for you. And he reaches down, or she reaches down, and they pull out a piece of paper, and they say, look, we do this big comprehensive study every year. We take all these numbers, we plug it into a computer program, we spend a ton of money on it, it pops out a number. And we just got our number for this year. So I've got exactly what you're looking for, the comprehensive piece of data. And he says, and that number is 23. Okay, in the scenario. That's not enough information, is it? A number in and of itself is not enough to let you get a snapshot of what the program's success is. So what I'd like you to do in your groups for 2 minutes is discuss what are the next 3 questions you would ask. What other pieces of information concerning that test number would you need to assess the strength of the organization overall? Does that make sense? All right, talk amongst yourselves. Once you finish up your conversation, we'll talk to you in about 10 seconds, 20 seconds. All right, I may not have given great instructions. This doesn't have anything to do with the graph on your table. This was just a scenario, just a number. What type of qualities do we need in numbers to actually assess our success with something? So with that in mind, did anybody come up with anything that they wanted to know?
I wanted to know what data was used to generate that number and what algorithm was used with the data to come up with that.
Sure. What's the significance of the number? That's generally the first question. I'd call that scale. Anybody else? What else? We want to know what the scale is. We want to know where it came from.
We want to know what the numbers were in previous years to see if there was a trend of improvement.
Absolutely. We want to know over time.
We want to know why we want to even measure that, why it's a key performance indicator.
We want to know what the correlation is between this number and what we're really trying to measure, causality. Anything else?
What was your goal?
What was your goal? What are your competitors doing? Well, see, you guys, the reason we did this was you're going to make my point for me. Because Baldrige has 4 qualities of data, and you came up with all of them. You know exactly what kind of data we need to use to get an idea of how good of a job we're doing. Now they use funny numbers, or funny words, I'm sorry, but it's the same things you guys were saying. We want to find numbers, and keep in mind, when this is scored, it's scored on a criteria from that none of the data does this to all of the data does this. The graph that I gave you that's on your table meets pretty much all 4 of these except for maybe segmentation. So it's not like an all or nothing thing. But in general, we want data that has levels, numbers with significance. We want trends, how it works over time or how it looks going up, is it going up or down. Comparison, multiple comparisons. How does it compare to our competition? How does it compare to the general average? How does it compare to benchmarks? So we're big with benchmarks here. Against the best. What's our goal? And then integration. What's the causality? Why is this number going up? And what are we doing to make that go up in the same way? If you get these 4 qualities into numbers, that your data set is really rich and deep, and there's no way to fake it. You can't fake that something's happening if you can show a trend over time compared to other people, and you make a connection to why it's going up. You know what I'm saying? So the Baldrige isn't this funny numbers game where we're just trying to throw numbers at things and trick people into thinking we're doing better. It's really sitting down and making sure that we are getting better with no way to game the system. Okay, so before I just start ripping through graphs and give you graph fatigue, I thought we'd do one more quick activity where you're going to do the same thing we just did. You're going to end up doing all my work for me, and I'll just clap and show you the slides and we'll go on. In front of you is one of the graphs that was included in our Baldrige application. This specific graph was pulled from the Best Places to Work survey report. So we all take that survey at the end of the year, and then Best Places to Work kicks back a whole bunch of data. Okay? Now this is kind of a broad look at all of our responses. So you have all those questions. We're just taking a percentage of the people who answered 4s and 5s at our school. That's the blue bar. The average of all the companies that submitted those surveys. That's the red bar. The average of the companies that are classified as small. That's the green bar. And then finally, the yellow bar is really our highest benchmark. That's the average positive response for all small companies that made the top 15 list. That make sense? So we've segmented it out 4 ways over 3 years. Against 3 benchmarks over 3 years. What I'd like you to do is in your group, now look at the graph and see what facts, conclusions you can draw from the graph. What does this tell you about Tri-County Tech Center, and whether, what does it tell you about Tri-County Tech Center? I'll end it there. That makes sense? Generate some facts, some conclusions based on this graph, and then we'll talk in a few minutes.
That's it, what we did last year. This year, I in the top ratio. I would love to tell you.
The average, all averages stay yes, the difference continues. Yeah, it's still got to be average. I think
Are there any groups that want more time, that need more time? We all good? Okay, so what do you guys think? What sorts of big conclusions came out of the data? We're improving. So when we talk about trends, we talk about over time, it's obvious that the blue bar is larger as we progress through time. Very good. Anything else?
our averages are raising, but others are fluctuating.
Sure, we've stayed consistent in our increase while others have bounced around. It's kind of a mixed bag with the other groups.
And about 93.75% is a positive answer.
That's about 93. Well, I don't know the exact numbers. There, let me turn that around because that fits into what I wanted you to say, which is our numbers are super high, right? I mean, and we're going to talk about the four things I would draw from this, but you guys have already hit three. Anybody have anything else? There we go. And there's the fourth one. We're better than our competition. Okay? So here's the way I'd phrase it. And I'm serious. This is the way I would tell somebody from Baldridge. We're pretty good, right? I mean, this is a survey, but I'm talking about all the graphs that we have in our application. We're way up there. Super high numbers. We're pretty good. We're getting better. Every graph, it's going up over time. We smash our competition. There's no question. You look at the graphs, we're well above those. And what's the fourth one? Gosh darn it. Oh, yeah, it's the last one. This is a result of intentional efforts. See, I know when before I was a part of the process team, I didn't really understand the behind-the-scenes work that was going in to prep us for Baldrige. And I know it's been talked about in past lunch and learn. But you got to understand, leadership team was setting structure for this years in the past. We're not on the exact same trajectory that most first-year Baldrige applicants are. We're way ahead of that because we've done a lot of the groundwork up front. All of these things that you're going to see are a result of intentional effort on part of the leadership team. So here's the takeaway. They're all going to look like this. I'm going to flip through a whole bunch of different graphs, and I'll stop and pause and talk about them. They're all going to look like that. It's the same characteristics. We're good, we're beating our competition and our benchmarks, it's getting better over time, and it's a result of intentional effort. So if you take nothing else away, take that. Yes?
Okay, so what if, which is not going to happen, on that chart, our little trend went down a little bit, but we were still above the average.
Sure.
Then what would we tell the Baldrige people?
Good question. So when we did the data analysis on the numbers, we looked first, the best characteristic would be if we just have this upward trend, right? But we also track the margins. We also track how we do in terms of competition. So there will be times that we may stay the same or go down, but because our competition has moved even further down or whatever, we can still project that as a positive. Does that make sense? And we don't use every single graph too. Go ahead, Abe.
Something else that you want to do is you want to take that information and find out why it went down, analyze it, and what steps you've taken in place to get back on the improvement track. That's
If we knew, the whole point of continuous improvement is there's something to improve, right? So that's absolutely right. I'm glad you brought that up. Well, not every, I say every, that's a little bit of hyperbole. Not every graph is stellar. 90% of them are. And we do have places that we need to, work on changing the data.
Okay, question.
Yes.
For clarification, these graphs, this application is for the Oklahoma Quality Board.
That's correct.
That we'll have review for in the fall.
That's correct. That's
not
just
the
a
actual
state.
fall.
No. But Oklahoma Quality
We have to win that
is
before we
basically the
apply
state
for Baldrige.
qualification for Baldrige. So it all kind of ties into the Baldrige award. Sorry, didn't mean to be confusing.
No.
John.
Just a question.
Yep.
We came in and then last year, it talked about we're outside as we are. There were still four other companies that were higher than us in our same category though, is that correct?
That's true.
So their average then is down in the yellow now. So
Sure.
there's actually those four companies sitting above us.
Well, and I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that this is just one element of the score that places
Okay.
us.
All
The survey in and of itself isn't the sole positioning.
Did they make a trip to campus?
They do not.
They do to take pictures.
That was kind of what, was there more than this one category? But in this one category, I mean, the final analysis, we come down, I believe, you said fifth, which is great.
Sure.
So I was just trying to get that tied in with something that you really can't relate it to this one chart.
No. And this is as detailed as the data gets. I mean, if we could take it down to a lot of the other Baldrige, this is for Jillian. A lot of the other Oklahoma Quality Award applicants use the number one company in their group. So, you use a Baldrige or Oklahoma Quality winner. We didn't have that data, or we would. And you're absolutely right. There's probably companies and groups that are higher than us, but we just don't know what their scores are. Good? Okay. All right, so let's start going through this. I have three. This will go quick. This is the graph fatigue part, then I'm going to be done. I have three subsections to talk about. The first one's 7.3, which is all of the metrics associated with workforce or employees. We drew all of this data from the best places to work data set, which is really the biggest and richest data set we had to work with. The Bright Ideas protocol and process and the numbers in terms of how many have passed and things like that. And then the KPMs that we've tracked. Keeping in mind that we have to trend everything, we have to have several years of information. So, we've already chopped this one up, dissected it, so I'll leave that one alone. This was the overall. Then, Best Places to Work breaks it up into 8 subcategories. One of the major subcategories is work environment. This is lighting, ventilation, cleanliness of our facilities. And you'll see again, and this is another example, the yellow is higher than us in these two situations. But here we're above the yellow. So it's not the exact same graph, but that's a positive trend, right? And if you're interested, if you're super mathematic and you want to know how to calculate that best fit, Baldrige Oklahoma Quality Award just defines it as the first point and the last point. So we could even go down in the middle. It wouldn't hurt us as long as we're making improvement over time. Anyway, That's work environment. Training and development, okay, and you can see, again, increases as we move forward and greater discrepancies between us and our competition. Pay and benefits, that's probably the most impactful of all of the subsections. We really think that we get paid well. Yes, we know that we get paid well, and our benefit package is excellent. Corporate culture and communications. Okay, this is how we feel about leadership and the school at large and how it functions and how we feel like we're communicated with both vertically and horizontally. Role satisfaction, how satisfied we are with our job and our placement and what we do. Almost done. Overall engagement. Now here, you'll notice in the application, some of those trends have changed. I pulled this from my source data, Angie and I's source data that we use to build the application. The application will actually be out to you in some form soon, and I've seen the application. And this one we've changed some of it's not neutral, it's good now, but it is kind of a good progression. Anyway, I kind of got off on a tangent there. The bottom line is that this is a mixed bag in some degree, but it still gives us a snapshot of how our employees feel about their engagement to the work environment. It's still a positive trend from 92% to 94%, with 2011 being kind of an anomaly. That's still good, right? Okay, moving on. Bright Ideas implementation was something else we used as an artifact to show that our processes are working. Bright Ideas submission and the number that have been forwarded to senior leadership and approved have all increased over the years. KPMs, we're all aware employee retention rate is one of our KPMs, and it has increased over the years. Notice here as we brought our KPM up, our actual levels came up in response to that KPM. So that KPM is a powerful motivator for that number. Workforce bachelor degree. Again, these are KPMs that I'm sure you guys are familiar with, so I'm not going to go into detail with myself. All right, 7.4 is leadership and governance. I have one graph to show you here because I don't have access to a whole lot of this information. So there was one best places to work set of data on leadership and planning, but that's a pretty substantial margin between us and our competition, the other people that are in that best places to work category. So we feel like our leadership is excellent. We also put data in the application from United Way contributions, which trend up over time. The results for our accreditation, the two groups that accreditate us. Crimes on campus, which we don't really have crimes on campus, but we put it in there. And community service hours. We track those things in the application as well. And you'll see that when you get the hard copy. We also include information in the application about budgeting and finances. And this is, I don't know how to trim this necessarily. It's more just information to me than an improvement of time issue. But we put things in the application about revenue, about expenditures broken down by fund. Pretty straightforward stuff. We all know about the carry forward and how that's affected life here at the Tri-County Tech Center, so we include that in the application. And percentage of workforce contributing to the foundation. Just exposing you to stuff. I know it's graph fatigue, right? Just like I said. All right, so we're at 31 minutes on the final thoughts. That's not too bad. That's good. So, okay, so now we've gone through that. You've been exposed to those graphs. Hopefully you kind of have an idea of what we included in the application. And I hope that you leave with some sort of idea of how it all fits together and why data is important, if nothing else. Plus some of the qualities of the data. Dr. Strobel wanted me to pass on some information that you all know that the application's been delivered, and that basically completes the one-year internal audit process. So we've audited ourselves, we've written that application. You will have access to that application in some form. I have hard copy up there, but I probably should have changed it. I don't know whether it'll be a hard copy or something. You'll get access to it soon, according to Dr. Strobel. The site visit, which is the external audit where people will be on campus combing through what we do, will occur next fall. And Dr. Strobel wanted you to know that there'll be concentrated professional development next August to get you ready for that. So anyway, that's all I have, unless you guys have questions. Yeah, talk about that. 30 minutes.